भेद विभागिने व्योमवद् व्याप्त देहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we were doing the verse number 68 and we'll move beyond. He is trying to explain to us how Atma is often confused as Anatma or vice versa. How we consider something which is not genuinely pure self as pure self. So attribute selfhood to our body, we attribute selfhood to our mind, we attribute selfhood to our indriyas. There are different prakaranas. So the Charvakas will say the body itself is the self. There is no self, there is no Atma beyond this body. And there are a couple of other, Charvakavadis who will also argue that the body may be there, but if indriyas are not there, then the body cannot move. So why can't we consider the indriyas or the sense organs to be the spirit in us? Another fellow will say there will be too many atmas in us. Why can't we focus on the prana? Because if prana goes, these indriyas are fruitless. Then somebody says, okay, prana is there. Why should a healthy and a rich and a prosperous guy hang himself or kill himself? Because he's depressed. His mind isn't fine. So mental health, your mind is superior to your ability to breathe. So let that be atma. Somebody else will say, okay, mind doesn't do anything unless you have agency. So why can't you accept your vijnana? That particular thing is atma. So it moves on, and finally everything gets refuted, and we are able to understand with the help of Vedantic insight that the pure self has existence or reality beyond names and forms. But we often confuse that pure self with different sopadika, with different branding names we paste on that pure self, and we call them to be real self. That is how it happens. So in the verse number 68, he mentioned Sadaiva Atma Vishuddhosti. Sada eva Atma Vishuddha eva asti. The Atma is ever pure. Then why should we confuse that as mind, as body, and so on and so forth? Hyasuddho bhati ve sada. However, it always appears as if it is tainted, as if it has different kinds of upadhis or labels. Yatheva dvidha rajur jnaninor nisham. So you have a rope. So you have two categories of people. There are jnanis and ajnanis. There is a rope lying in a room, and the room is not very brightly lit up. It's dimly lit up. There's dim light in the room, and you get in, and then you confuse that rope as a snake. But the guy who knows it's a rope, he's not scared. You're scared of entering the room. A little boy, he gets in and he picks up his stuff and comes out. You're saying there's a snake. Why do you go in? He says, there's no snake. What snake are you talking about? No, that's a snake. I see that. Yeah, it looks like a snake. It's a rope. So what is very valuable for the agyani is it's meaningless, worthless for somebody who has real jnana. Like, for example, the best example is in our own lives, we have experienced it. As children, we would value certain dolls. And then after some time, we are happy to give away that doll to a younger kid. We are no more attached to it. Similarly, many things we consider extremely valuable. There's a point of time we lose interest in it. Somebody asks, you give it away. Whether it's a particular sports or is a particular place or a membership in a club or any particular relationship, any particular hotel, any particular food, we have a lot of value attached to it in the beginning. Same stuff. And we are also same people. What changes? The mind frame, the understanding of it. Then you lose interest in it. You value your school and a college, but would you like to be part of it anymore? No, you're happy to go and be part of this alumni function, alumni association. You can go and join the function of old boys, old girls. Would you like to go in the sit in the class and study again? No, you are not. I mean, for fun, yes, one day, but you have gone, you have grown beyond it. You are a truly grown up person. Therefore, he's saying that everywhere uh, have we. I didn't get just a minute. What was the. Oh, I see. Can you can't hear? Is that okay? Can others hear me? Is there any problem?
We
I
can
can
hear
hear.
you, Swamiji.
We can hear.
Okay. Okay. So maybe yeah. So there could be. Have we? Yeah, there may be some issue. Neelaj, you may like to maybe relog in or something, or improve your volume because it's audible to others. So in that sense, he's saying that essentially there are two categories of people. There are some categories of people who are deficient in understanding this whole mystery of what we call sansara or existence. One category of people who have that Atmagyana are not dumbfounded, are not spellbound, are not flabbergasted by all the pictures that emerge and disappear before our eyes, what we call our life and our world. Where the others get completely confused and get attached. That is what he's trying to say. So, like you have two categories of people, Jnani and Ajnani. The rope doesn't frighten the Jnani, but frightens the Ajnani who considers that to be a snake. This verse is so rich because much of our life, it's like we do a lot of counseling. It happens with teenagers. Many of these teenagers, for one examination, for one small infatuation, they're ready to throw away their life because there is a particular mental obsession. I mean, the mind doesn't function anymore. The ignorance has become the king. We are no more in a position to decide. And that is what Arjuna sort of was stuck with. We sometimes hit upon these patches in life where our viveka, our ability to discriminate properly, analyze things, it doesn't work. And therefore, we feel very depressed. We feel very excited sometimes, considering something extremely valuable, which perhaps doesn't deserve so much of attention of ours. That is clear. Verse number 68, and we move forward. He is going to give you a few examples similarly to mention and explain the same thing between Atma and Anatma and the aviveka thereof, our inability to distinguish them. We'll also look at Navagana's question towards the end of it. So in the verse number 69, therefore, he's saying, Yatheva mrinmayaha kumbhas tadvad dehopi chinamayaha atmanatma vibhagoyam mudhaiva kriyate budhai. Yatha eva mrinmayaha kumbhaha. Kumbha is a pot. And what is it full of? What is it made of? It's made of clay. That is the upadana karana. It's made of clay. And if you look at, he's saying the human body, what is it made of? He's using this word. You may find it a little confusing because in case of samsara, the upadana karana is agyana, anadi agyana. That is the upadana karana. Nimitta karana is Ishvara. And upadana karana is agyana. But he's saying chinmayaha. Now, he's taking it to the next higher level of understanding. Where is Ajnana ultimately? In Brahman. It has any independent existence? No. Why does it appear like that? Well, that is the name of the game. What it is, it will not appear like that. So, without Brahman, because he's Sarva Adhisthana, anything that we see in the samsara, what is the substratum of all this? It is that Chinmaya Satta, that Brahman, as we understood in the Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavan says, I'm Sarvatmaka, I'm everywhere. So that is the central message here, Chinmayaha, because the body cannot be Chinmaya, but by Chinmaya he's saying, what is the essential nature? Is this real? What is the essential nature of all that we see as ourselves? It is that pure consciousness. Similarly, the fundamental essential element in us is that pure consciousness. And he's saying, then why you have this whole dialogue between Atma and Anatma? You give us long lectures. This is Atma, this is Anatma. Why do you do that? Why do we need to do Atma Anatma Viveka? You think, look here, in the beginning stages, we need this Atma Anatma Viveka. But ultimately, like for example, somebody who is looking at a rope and confusing this as a snake. In the beginning, he needs to be told this is a rope, not a snake. Snake is different, this is different. That viveka he needs initially. But then, after a few days, it continues to look like a rope, a snake. But he no more thinks about the snake. He says it's a rope, it's there. It's only for the first time who looks at that rope because of the texture and the appearance that the stranger or the newcomer to that place has a chance to confuse that rope as a snake. However, somebody who has got familiar with it never confuses that rope anymore with a snake. The person who is new to Advaita Vedanta, he has to be told that whatever you see as samsara, as colorful, as diverse, multifarious, remember the substratum is one and only Brahman. But then when he does a lot of sadhana and he moves forward, the samsara may continue to appear as it is, as it does, but that particular Atmajna is no more perturbed by it. He always sees only the Brahman. He has this fundamental understanding. Yeah, these things will appear like that. We need not worry. That is the central message. And how does he explain it? Atma anatma vibhaga ayam. Ayam atma anatma vibhagaha. That this part is atma, the appearance is unreal. What doesn't appear, the foundation is real. Mudha eva kriyate abudhehi. This is atma, this is anatma. This is jada, this is chetan. Abudhehi means somebody who is not fully self-realized. Doesn't mean he's stupid. Because that is the first step in Vedanta sadhana. Nitya Nitya Vastu Vivekaha, that is the beginning. Atma Anatma Vastu Vivekaha. So it's not completely useless. But what he's saying is that somebody who is not fully there, somebody not fully realized, has the tendency to start with this sort of distinction between what is Atma and what is Anatma. It is necessary, it is essential on the path of enlightenment. But for the enlightened, they lose their relevance. Like you do a lot of coursework and you finish your PhD, you don't look at your examination sheets and the preparation and the all kinds of material you had put together. You give it away to a junior. You move forward. That is how it is that he moves. He's saying Kriyate Abhudehi. And the verse number for now, another 14 verses would be more or less like this, very easy. So I'll be moving a little fast. I hope you would understand. But if you have any doubt, you can put it in the message and I will definitely come to that. Verse number 70. Sarpatvena yatha rajju rajatatvena suktika binirnita bimudhena dehatvena tathatmata. Sarpatvena yatha rajju. The rope is there. But the uninitiated who is entering the room for the first time, he sees that as snake. Imagine if he's not corrected by anyone. For rest of his life or her life, she or he will remember that he or she had seen a snake in that room. That's going to stick with that person. You might consider it very sad, but that's how it is. Just imagine, sometimes I used to think like that. We are fortunate because we saw so much of changes in history during our lifetime. Imagine the people who were born in Russia around 1918, let's imagine, or say they were born in early 1900. and they died before 1955. So they lived for about 50 years, or they died before Khrushchev came. Before 1960, they died. For them, communism is the ultimate solution. They did not go beyond it. They haven't seen beyond that. I mean, you remember Mendrick the Magician and Phantom and all those comics we used to study. I remember that back in 80s, there were this Phantom is talking to his girlfriend on a radio television. There would be a radio where he can see his friend. It was very exciting to read. Nobody knew that just in about 20 years' time, 20, 25 years' time, people would be talking to each other, seeing each other. Can you imagine? Did we ever think about it? A lot of things we believe to be genuine and real have been refuted by science. We have got new facts. What we consider to be real today perhaps would be refuted tomorrow. This path of knowing more and more is unending. We are going closer and closer to truth. Therefore, Sarpatvena yatha rajju rajatatvena suktika. Similarly, suktika, a seashell, appears as if it's a silver coin. For whom? For the one who doesn't know. Binidnita bimudena, that kind of a person who is not wise enough. Dehatvena tathatmata, he is the one who thinks, what is the self? Self means this body, Charvakavadis. Charvakavadi had a very beautiful argument. He would say that when you have these betel nuts and betel leaves and you have these lime and couple of other things that you put there and chew it for a while, red color comes out. But none of the stuff you're holding in your hands or used it have red color. The betel leaves is green, the betel nuts are brownish, lime is white. You put them together in your mouth and you chew it for a while. And how is the spit? The spit is pretty red, almost looks like blood. Where does then he says that if a person takes some alcohol, he gets intoxicated. The alcohol apparently doesn't carry any intoxication in it. He took some alcohol, and there could be some biological changes, biochemical changes in his brain, and he talks in a completely different fashion. There's a new person you meet. If that is possible, this body, these material inputs that are put together, it behaves, it becomes conscious. Brain has no independent existence. He's saying these are the people who reduce the self to the body because they do not understand well. Then he goes further. Ghatatvena yatha prithvi patatvena patatvene vastantavaha vininnida vimudhena dehatvena tathatmata. One more example. Ghatatvena yatha prithvi. And only this part is the earth. He doesn't understand that clay is vyapaka, is adhika desha vritti samparna. Prithvi is everywhere. The earthen pot is just one element. Similarly, the person who doesn't know anything, he confuses the cloth, whatever he's having, that to be cotton. But that's not true. He doesn't have a clear understanding. Similarly, a person who is not wise enough, he considers the body to be the self. And one more example. Kanakam kundala tvena taranga tvena vejalam vininnita bimudhena dehatvena tathatmata. The water, we name it as waves, like a tsunami wave or high tide, low tide, tide and ebb. So, Kanakam Kundalatvena, it's actually gold, but we give different names. It's a necklace. We do not call it a golden necklace. We forget the golden part. This is a lovely necklace. This is an earring. She gave me an earring. This is a nose pin. This is a bracelet. Gold part is forgotten. But actually, these are nothing other than gold. And when you're looking at it, please look at these beautiful waves. What are you looking at? You are actually looking at water. But you're using the word to describe water as what? Waves. Similarly, the Brahman is everywhere. We don't see it. We are referring to that as river, as mountain, as sansara, as human beings, as animals, as plants and birds. Bimudhena dehatvena tathatmata. Similarly, the self is referred to as a body, and by body we can use all these words, whatever has a material name and a form. In verse number 73, same way he moves forwards. Purus, Purushatve yathastanur jalatvena marichika beninnita bimudhena dehatvena tathatmata. Purushatve yathastanur. There is a stump. It's inanimate. It has no life. There's a stump. You're going. It's night time. Somebody has chopped up a tree and half of it is left. And you're looking at that pole or a stump or whatever. You confuse that to be a thief or a human being who is trying to obstruct your path, or maybe a spirit or a goblin or something. You get scared. And then Jalatvena Marichika. These are examples which are completely contradictory to what exists there. First, water is wave. Look at the examples he's giving. Like rope becomes snake, completely different. The dharmas are different. There's no relationship. But wave has water, you know this. It's just an additional name given there. The pot is a name additionally given to that clay. It's actually clay, but we call it a pot. Similarly, he's saying Purusha is superimposed on a stump, and water body is superimposed on a desert. It's a desert, you are going, it's a hot day, and it appears as if there's a water mass over there. Bininnita bimudhena dehatvena tathatmata. Then he's giving one more example, very similar. Grihatvena grihatveneva kasthani khangatveneva lohata bininnita bimudhena dehatvena tathatmata grihatvena iva kasthani. You know, olden days, even now they do it in the Western countries, they make houses made of wood. They have a lot of wood there, so they will build their houses because it will give you a lot of protection from thermal variations outside, the temperature variations. In the winter, they're very useful. These things are, I mean, they were also used in India for building certain houses in jungles and all. And they used to use mud and other things for walls, and they will have a thatched roof. But even now, there are certain countries where still, in especially where you have these chilly winters, they have wooden houses, wooden floors. Grihatvena kasthani, actually what the house is made of is made of wood, but you're calling it a house. But actually wood which are chopped into different sizes and shapes and put together, and then you call it a house. The fundamental material out there is wood. And then what? Khangatvena iva lohata, iron. You heat it and you hammer it and you prepare a sword, or you have any kind of instrument you have prepared out of iron. You don't anymore see the iron. You're saying this is a knife, this is a sword, whatever you're using these words, but material is actually iron. And therefore, same way, the Param Brahman is appearing as so many things, and we accept that as ultimate truth, which is not. Next 12 verses are essentially repetitions of this truth, and so we'll be moving faster because there's nothing to hold us back. Yatha briksha briparyaso yalad bhavati kasyachit tadvad atmani dehatvam pasyatya jnana yogataha. So he is now explaining why should then we consider a desert to have a water mass? Why do we confuse wood as a house, clay as a pot, gold as a golden chain or a chain? Why you do that? He's saying, look here, there are more examples. Yatha briksha viparya. So if you go near, um, you can see that in the Himalayas, you have this Bhimtal and Nainital. You have so many lakes there in the hilly areas. And these beautiful, quiet, even in Sri Lanka, if you go to where is that place where you have the tombs of Lord Buddha? I'm forgetting that place. Mm. So you have a beautiful lake in front of that huge temple where Buddha's tooth is worshipped, is a sacred temple for the Buddhists. And in front of that, you have a beautiful water body and very big trees, and the shades of the buildings and the trees around that lake, they are kind of getting reflected in the water mass. And you stand there, it's amazing. Similarly, I had seen a lake at Leknath near Nepal. It's a huge lake on the Himalayas. It's actually a plain area, but the mountainous range kind of starts there. So there are a couple of places, tourist places, but if you sit next to that huge lake and you watch it, it reflects these mountains. And these mountains appear inverted. The trees appear inverted. The trees are not inverted in nature, but they appear so real. Therefore, he's saying, Yatha Briksha Viparyasau. Viparyasa is inverted, it appears. Why? Jalat, because of water, Bhavati Kasyachit. Sometimes it appears as if trees, like you stand next to a coconut tree in Eastern India, you will see a lot of it. So you go to many of these water bodies in the villages, they will have a lot of palm trees and coconut trees planted around these water bodies. And you look into the water on a very quiet afternoon, they get reflected beautiful on the still water surface. They mirror it, and then they look, upward down. So they look inverted. That is what is referring. Kasyachid tadavad atmani dehatvam pashyati ajnana yogataha. So the inversion, like Karl Marx, I think in his German ideology, he was talking about it, how reality gets inverted. There is a lot of inequality in society. He says that we talk about freedom and equality. In the marketplace, there is exchange, so it's very real. There is freedom of choice, but there is no freedom of choice. You are forced to buy, they are controlling everything. So he says the relationship production level, there's a lot of inequality, but you can't see that. I don't know whether he has studied Vedanta, but a lot of Germans had access to this whole dialectical materialism and stuff like that. If you read of Hegel's philosophy, there were some, you can see a bit of vague footprints of Indian philosophy there, but he doesn't acknowledge it. Now, some people are working on it. Somebody has written a beautiful book called Hegel on India. Very nice, bright student who is now in a publishing house. He's written this book, Hegel on India, where he says that Hegel all the time makes fun of Indian philosophy, but nevertheless, unknowingly, he sort of borrows a few ideas, but nobody acknowledges that. So, this inversion that Karl Marx talks about in Vedanta philosophy, they're talking much before he was born, that the reality appears inverted. Inversion is part of this whole game of appearance. Then, similarly, he's giving another example. पोतेन गच्छतः पुंसः सर्वं भातीव चञ्चलं तद्वद् आत्मनि देहत्वं पश्यत्यज्ञानयोगतः. Now, tadvad atmani dehatvam pasyatyajnana yogata will be a common second half for all these verses till verse number 84. What does he say? Potena gachatah. Pota is what? It's a boat or a ship or something. You're sitting on it and it's moving very fast. That experience you can have if you are there in Calcutta. Then you take one of the jetties to move from Dakshineshwar to Belud. So you get into that boat and you sit there. For a second, you presume that you are still. It's possible. And you will see all these buildings and trees that are going backward and you're moving forward. You are there, they are going backward. Like it happens in a train, sometimes you're sitting in Indian conditions. So suddenly the train starts. You think the houses and all, they're going backwards. You are still, because you are 4 5 people, you are playing some games, and so it has a appearance and stability. You don't understand you are moving. You are still, otherwise how are you playing the game? And therefore all the buildings and people, they are moving backward. That's what he's saying here. Potena gacchata pungshaha sarvam bhati va chanchalam. Everything appears. Chanchalam eva bhati. It moves as if it's in motion. Actually, you are in motion. Similarly, the Atma appears as having this chanchalata and everything. It doesn't have any movement, but we attribute kriyashilata. It's nishkriya. We believe that, okay, myself, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Atma is not doing anything. Then we move forward. पीतत्वं हि यथा शुभ्रे दोषाद् भवति कस्यचित् तद्वद् आत्मनि देहत्वं पश्यत्यज्ञानयोगतः. पीतत्वं, when you have jaundice, pilia, what they call in Hindi, when you have jaundice, a white piece of paper might appear a little yellow. A lady wearing a white sari, it'll appear as if she's wearing a sari, a butter color or ghee color, or maybe a slightly yellowish. That's because of the problem in our eyesight caused by a physical ailment called jaundice. Therefore, he's saying, Pitatvam hi yatha subre, in a white thing, dosha. That dosha is what? That roga, that disease that you have. Bhavati kasyati, sometimes it happens. Similarly, despite all Vedanta and everything, we do sansara, we see sansara is real and we get trapped in it. Another example. चक्षुर्भ्यां भ्रमशीलाभ्यां सर्वं भाति भ्रमात्मकं तद्वद् आत्मनि देहत्वं पश्यत्यज्ञानयोगतः. Now, if there is some problem in your eyes, your astigmatism, so a spot will look like a line, you do not see things properly, or they say if you wear green goggles, you see everything is green, isn't it? When you want to snap back at somebody who has a misperception about you, what do you tell him or her? Yeah, yeah, if you wear red goggles, you see everything is red. It's your viewpoint. And you are imposing your viewpoint on samsara. Let me tell you, Vedanta is actually as simple as that. Much of what we call real is essentially reality perceived through colored goggles. And that colored goggles is named in Advaita Vedanta as Ajnana. And our colored goggles are all different depending on our sanskaras, our punya, our papa, our sadhana. Then he's giving another example. Different kinds of examples are given here. Alatam brahmani neva bartulam bhati suryavat tadvadatmani dehatvam pasyatya jnana yogataha. Another example. You know what is alata? Alata is, you must have seen that. You can see that in different yatras or festivals in India in certain parts. Sometimes in different kinds of sports. It's essentially two firebrands or fireballs and connected through or in a kind of a rope or a chain, something which can hold them together. Then you sort of and you move them in a ring by twisting your hand, and that's a skill. The whole thing appears as if it's a fire ring, as if it's a real fire ring over there. It looks pretty spherical like the sun, but it's not there. There's nothing of that sort there. You're just moving. There's a firebrand. You can just use one firebrand also. You just have to move very fast. It looks like a circular fireball. But nothing of that sort exists. That's what he's saying. Alatam Brahmaniniva. So if you give it a circular motion, Bhartulam Bhati Suryavat, it appears spherical, circular, like the sun. Similarly, the Atma, which doesn't have any form, is attributed with certain forms, is superimposed on the Atma. Because actually that circular thing doesn't exist. It's just a firebrand or a fireball, you're just moving it. Then similarly, he's giving another example. This was written sometime in 16th century or 17th century, so this is very interesting. Of course, we have that in the Sankhya philosophy. They were pretty advanced in the basic understanding of a few scientific facts. You see that in this verse. Mahatve sarvavastunam anutvam hyati durataha tadvad atmani dehatvam pasyatya jnana yogataha. Now, actually, look at the sun. It's far greater in size than the moon, but they look of same size. The stars, they look tiny and small. And then you study science and you know, no, that particular star is few thousand times the size of sun. How does that happen? That is what he's saying. Mahatve, even though that thing is pretty big, sarva vastunam anutvam hi atidurataha. Because of distance, we have a misperception of the size of something. Why is he trying to give this example? The Atma is Sarvatmaka. Brahma is very word. It's grand, it's very large. That's why it's referred to as Brahman. But we are trying to reduce it to the Jivatma, saying, this is my Atma, that is your Atma. We're trying to delimit it because of a faulty understanding. That is what he's trying to say, that again, it's because of the problem in our perception and it's too far away from us in understanding, and that's how we are trying to reduce it, but it's not so. So, Duratva dosha. Duratva doshat, you are seeing something, a small duratva doshat anutva bodhaha. Because it's very far away, you are attributing anutva or smallness to it. And he's giving another beautiful example, which is part of our everyday life. Suksmatve sarvabhavanang sthulatvam chopanitratah tadvad atmani dehatvam pasyatya jnana yogatah. Suksmatve sarvabhavana. Think about a microscope. Is giving this word upanetra. Upanetra is spectacles or microscope or lenses. Something, you look at the guys who are working on watches, the watch mechanics. They put a stick on their eyes or lens. So it's like a small microscope, and everything looks very big and they can work on it. We use microscopes in the hospitals. And those of you who have done chemistry or those who have studied botany and stuff like that, or geology, where they use microscope to see these microfossils or different kinds of bacteria and stuff like that, you can see them only with the help of a microscope. Otherwise, you can't see them. So first he gave an example of a sthula thing which appears as small. Now he's giving an example of something small which appears as big. What is he trying to say? That our understanding of what we consider to be shape and size are not final, are not reliable. Even though we might think that we know, actually we do not know. We might just presume that it's X, this is Y, so and so forth. But these are all mostly, these are presumptions in a certain of a certain kind. Then he moves forward. This is another example very close to the rope and the snake mix up that we suffer every day. Kacha bhumau jalatvamba jala bhumau hi kachata tadvadatmani dehatvam pasyatya jnana yogataha. Kacha bhumau. Kacha is glass. So you have, just imagine a grand surface. It can happen. And you may have seen that sometimes. The flooring is done with some material which is kind of reflective of light. And then it might look like a water surface to you. On a sunny day, it might just reflect light and you might confuse that this is a water body. Or vice versa, and you must have seen these pranks on the YouTube where they have arranged it in such a fashion that you have tiles all around and there is actually a water body, a small mass of water, but they have a floor green color. The floor of rest of the place is green color, so it looks exactly like a surface. And then you walk into it and you fall, and people clap and take pictures and make videos and post it on YouTube. These are confusion because of similarity of appearance. Two different things may appear to be the reverse of what they are. So he's saying Kacha Bhumi might look like a water surface. A piece of glass, a surface of glass surface may look like a water surface, and water surface may look like a glass surface. That is the simple point he's saying. And then he's what is the Drashtantika? Same way you are attributing body and qualities of the body to the Atma were completely different from each other. The next one. Yadvad agnau mani tvam hi mano bhavanhita puman tadvadatmani dehatvam pasyatya jnana yogataha. Similar, slightly different. So imagine that inside a house there is a tiny lamp, very small lamp there in a corner. And from a long distance, there is a thief who is trying to get into that building. He sees that point of light from a long distance and he confuses that most likely this is the palace of a king or a very rich person. It must be a piece of diamond. It's not a piece of diamond. It may be a just small tiny lamp. So this is called Vishambhadi Brahma and Sambhadi Brahma in Vedanta. So what is Sambhadi Brahma? Sambhadi Brahma is the methodology of knowing something may be faulty, but you may get the right conclusion. So somebody might ask you this question, by reading Vedanta you can have Atma Jnana. He says, yeah, there is something called Sambhadi Brahma. Through words you can also have Atma Jnana. We'll go there just after this. I'll go there. But there is something called Dasamo Tvamasi. There were these 10 boys who went on a picnic with permission from the matron of that ashram where they lived. And Guruji was away. And they come back and they board a boat and go to the other side. They go and join a feast. While coming, they board the boat and they count themselves. The boatman counts, please count us. They count, yeah, you are 10 people. They get into the boat and they get off the boat after they reach this other shore and the other bank, and he counts them 1 to 10. Then they are moving forward to their school or the ashram where these little boys are studying in a Gurukula. And then the leader of these boys is counting others. He counts 1 to 9. He's not being able to count himself. Then he's saying only there are 9 boys. What do I tell Guru Ma? She's going to ask me where is the 10th boy. So they start crying because everybody counts and it's coming to 9. The little boys start crying. What do we answer to the teacher? Who died? And the boatman tells them, no, you are 10. He counts again, but they don't understand. He's saying he's cheated us. Then he goes home. They go home and they are trying to hide it. They are all depressed. Guru Ma says, what happened to you? One of us got drowned in the river when we were crossing the river by a boat. She counts them. He says, well, yeah, you're 10 people. Then she doesn't want to waste time anyway. She's not a Vedantist. She gives them food. And she doesn't bother, but they are still sad. They have lost somebody. Then the Guruji comes back to the ashram after some lecture he had somewhere. He says, what happens? Why are the boys so depressed? Why are they in the tears? The monitor of this band of boys walks up to the teacher, touches his feet and says, Master, one of us got drowned. He says, how did that happen? Then he counts them. He says, you are all 10. Then the boy smartly and quickly counts them and says, yeah, but it's coming to only 9. And then the teacher pats this boy and he says, Dasama Tvamasi, you are the 10th one. You are not looking at yourself, you are counting the rest. The boy nods his head, he accepts it. Then he goes to his room to sleep. All the boys blindly accept nobody has died, but this bright student has a lot of died. How can it be 10 because I'm counting we are just 9? But at night he meditates on this meaning of this word, Dasama Tvamasi, you are the 10th one. And finally he realizes what is the meaning of the sentence, I am not being able to count myself. That is his Atmajnana. Similarly, when Vedanta gives you a lot of insights, we are not being able to accept it. What the masters tell us, what the parampara tells us, that through continuous meditation on this truth, and by comparing with everything we see in our lives and we experience over a period of time, we would be able to realize this inner truth. So, from knowledge through words, we can have Atmajnana. That's all he's saying. Similarly, he's saying this example of fire. So, in one case, one person enters thinking it's a diamond, but he finds it's actually a tiny lamp. That is Visambadi Brahma. What is Sambadi Brahma? That he enters thinking this is a diamond, actually it's a diamond. He enters, he doesn't have a correct knowledge. A little flicker is not the proof enough of a particular element or an object of being a diamond. That's not the best way to confirm its diamondness. So, but he has entered it and he finds a diamond. But here he's saying, Yadavad Agno Manitvam Hi, you attribute it's a piece of jewelry, it's a precious gemstone. Similarly, Manu Ba Vanhita Puman, and actually there's a diamond. Another stupid thief who was looking at it, and the next day he goes and he finds there's a diamond, but he thinks it's a lamp. He ignores that rule. Puman Tadvad Atmani Dehatvam Pashyatya Jnana Yogataha. So we are seeing if there is X, we presume Y, and it is Y, we presume X, and that's because of inadequate knowledge of the self. And this is how this discussion, this is we have hit this. Then he's giving another example. Verse number 84. Abhresu satsu dhavatsu somo dhavati bhati vei tadvad atmani dehatvam pasyatya jnana yogataha. And this again a very common experience. At night, on a full moon night, imagine late summer, early monsoon, or maybe early autumn, where there are a few clouds, which not completely overcast, so you can see the moon. So the clouds are moving, and you are lying on your roof, or you're sitting in your garden, and you're watching the splendid sky. And what do you see? That the clouds are actually moving, but you see that the moon is running away from these white clouds. The moon isn't moving right there. The clouds are moving very fast. And it appears if the moon is running towards a northerly direction. That's not how the moon moves. Depending on the direction of the movement of the clouds, you attribute movement with certain direction to the moon. Same thing happens. Depending on what we are looking at, what is our perception, what is our anticipation, we attribute different qualities, different names and forms to the Atma. That is the basic simple point he's trying to make. This is how this all 12 verses will move forward. This will be a different kind of discussion after this. We have few minutes. So in this context, the question which was raised in the last class, very useful. So let's look at them before we end the class. So he's saying that the question is that we got this body because of our past karma. The moment is assigned karma is finished, this body will be no longer with us. Yeah, for this life, I tell you, karma doesn't come to an end because we are going to die. When the karma, prarabdha karma, is for this body and whatever we are going to experience during this life. Sanchita karma is limitless because we have billions of lives. Kriyamana karma, which we add during this life of ours. So Sanchita, Kriyamana. Once you have Atmajnana, the Shastra says that the agami karmas are all destroyed. The benefits or losses which should actually accrue to us if we are Ajnani will not come to us because we have Atmajnana. That means we do not accept agency anymore in us In that event, our punya karmas will go to people who are doing seva or trying to help us, and any unintended papa karmas which happens after atmajnana will go to the people who are trying to trouble you or criticize you or put you in some trouble. That is how your papa punyas will be now taken away. Like a person who is very old and he's going to die, he has some wealth. So some people who are very close to him, he gives it to them. And maybe there are a couple of other things. There could be a dog or stuff like that. It goes to some other fellow. Now, when we get Atmagyana, he's saying that aslesa vinaso, purva karma gets destroyed, sanchita karmas, and agami karma will not touch you anymore. Prarabdha karma, however, will continue to give results. Shankaracharya clarifies, give results to whom? Not to Atmagyani, but so far others are concerned, they would perceive us as suffering or being happy, but we shall not in genuine terms experience either sadness or happiness because we are unable to have these emotions anymore, even though there will be such sukha dukkha abhasa. There will be appearance of sukha dukkha through our body mind framework, but that will not be genuine. The best example is Thakur Ramakrishna Paramahansa. When he had throat cancer, he used to talk, and one of the these medical doctor, one Bengali homeopathic doctor, used to come to him and he said that you are talking about so many things and why do you suffer? He said, I'm not suffering. I'm talking to you. I love you. When you come, I can jolly well close my eyes and meditate. But I have to just interact with you people. I'm not interacting, I'm not attached or identified with this body. But then I have to live my life at a physical, material, emotional plane in interaction with people. That is the lila part of Atmagyanis. So that is how we start, and then he's giving rope and snake. That is possibility. What about a dim room? And that's a very, very good question. In the Panchadasi, Vidyaranya Muni, who is the Tikakara, who is the commentator, has written a gloss on this text. He mentions that even though you may have a proper understanding that it's a rope, because you had a torchlight, you put it there are two things which are remaining with you. After you know it's a snake, remember your heart continues to beat. Like if you're very, very, it's like you missed you escaped an accident, but still your heartbeat continues. Similarly, fear, excitement, anger of a situation may linger in you after that incident is no more there. It has passed. The consequences, the mental modifications, the psychological modifications may persist a while. Similarly, in Atmagyani, there is what is they call avidyalesha, there is some vyavahara. That is one school of thought that he might be. So he might get angry, he might get excited, he might get sad or happy, but it will be very minimum. But the second example he gives is that even if you know it's a rope, it's not a snake, in a semi-dark room, if you enter, you might again get frightened. And it's quite possible. It's not inevitable, however. So, despite all Atmagyana and everything and great things that we discuss, it's quite possible that you're caught up in a traffic jam and you lose your temper and you shout at somebody who is driving without following the rules. It's quite possible. And you know you are a Vedanti, you don't trust all these things to be seriously true. But that happens in your Vyavahara because of your Purva Sanskara. But these are not unavoidable. You can always return to the truth. The mind will play games with us and we can return to our wisdom. We can look beyond our own minds. The third question, as long as cycle of birth and death continues, the subtle body consisting of pranamaya kosha, manomaya kosha, vijnanamaya kosha transmigrates the linga sarira. The moment the person gets enlightened, the subtle body goes and merges with the nature and the self is merged with the Brahman. My doubt is, in such case, what is the experience of the soul if there is as such? Is there any feeling at this stage that the self is merged with the Brahman? How the self will enjoy the bliss when there will be no mind? Very, very good question. You know what? This is kind of addressed in Bhagavad Gita. Let me just look at the tiny Gita where Bhagavan is trying to explain in the chapter 2, I think. Chapter 2, or which chapter is this? Okay, there is one particular verse, I'm just forgetting where exactly to locate it, where Bhagavan is explaining that the person who is self realized, once a person is self realized, how does he give Atmagyana? Is he there as an agency? So, how can the teacher give Atmagyana? Second question, if he is completely dissolved in the self, then he cannot speak because for him there is no Shishya, no teacher, nothing. How do you explain Guru Parampara? Then you will say, okay, he's not fully self realized. He's greatly self realized, but not fully self realized. In that event, you are saying the Guru Parampara is a parampara of imperfect Atmajnanis, imperfectly self realized. What use it? There's no use in it. The third possibility is, how does a person sees this truth? I can see this pen because this pen is different from me. I see myself. What does it mean? Is the self an object of perception? Can you see the self? How do you see the self? Therefore, asaryavat pashyati enam, Bhagavad Gita says. It's a matter of mystery how a person is able to see. You cannot explain this in words. Because what they say is, wherever the Triputi, the agency, the seer, the seen, the object of perception, and the process of seeing, they get dissolved into one pure consciousness. That is the self. Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. No, you are not Brahman. You are a human being with limitations. Well, so when you keep on meditating on it, you might become very arrogant when you say Aham Brahmasmi, it will destroy all my devotional attitude and then fill me with a lot of spiritual arrogance, which is true. But the masters have advised us that when you are meditating on Aham Brahmasmi, the Aham part cannot be there because the Brahman has no limitation. Because by Atma, we are referring Aham, Aham Pratyaya. You start with Aham, but then you get rid of your mental, all the panchakoshas. What remains is that pure consciousness. Brahman is that pure consciousness. When you remove the Ajnana Upahita Chaitanya, the Maya Upahita Chaitanya, Ishwaratva removed from Ishwara, what remains is that Param Brahman. That I am, but when I'm saying that I am, that subject I doesn't exist anymore as an egoistic self. Am true, Brahma Asmi. Then you can even ask this question, Asmi is what? The Kriya Rupa, the verb associated with the first person. So Brahma Asmi or Brahma Asti, only the Brahma is there, nothing else. So how does he feel? How do I express what does it mean? It essentially presumes a state of being where all this become dull in front of that luminosity of the self. Then you are saying that he is going to teach his students after this Atma Jnana. So it's like a higher stage where he comes down. That is what a lot of people confuse. That he did meditation, he had samadhi, then he comes. That's what happens with all our meditations and sadhanas. You reach very higher, refined states, and you have very subtle experiences. Then there's a phone call, there's a work to do, and then you break your fast and penance, and then you come back to these everyday fluctuations of your mind and your emotions. The Atmagyani, what Vedanta says is, look here, the game of the mind will resume, but you have Atmagyana, you have that Vastu Tantra, you know that it is. Like, for example, you look at the sky, The sky doesn't have blue color. You have done your physics well, you understand it has no colors. Then you look at the sky, the blue color will appear. Similarly, with all Atmagyana, the Vyavaharika, the everyday level of existence, you will still need some bread and a butter in the morning, a coffee. You may talk to some person. You may jolly well watch a cricket match as well. But you are all the time caught up with yourself. There are different sannyasa Upanishads where there is some glimpses of what that Atmagyani is all about. They mention that Jadavat Acharet, Balyena Tishtaset. A lot of words are there. He's like a little child. He plays, but he's lost in himself. So these are metaphoric expressions. But to my mind, they need not bother us right now because we are still on the path of the journey. So you're doing it. What it is like to be there is much less important. Then this whole process of transformation of the consciousness and the purification of the way we perceive the world, because this process of purification lightens the burden of samsara on our shoulders. And then we are able to move forward. So let me stop here. Any other questions, you can always put that, and we'll have follow-up discussions when we meet again on Thursday. So we'll do the Santi mantras. Om